Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move. Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be serving to inspect?
Maritime also protects our seas and waters by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed. Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am Captain Glenn Bain, and I am your host again for another episode of our show. Tonight we will continue the hot topic, illegal migration, but it wouldn't be illegal migration in the Bahamas. This time we will cover illegal migration in the Mediterranean Sea. All of those migrants, and they're in far bigger numbers than our migrants coming to the Bahamas, moving from North Africa, crossing the Mediterranean Sea to get into Europe for a better way of life. We're going to go through all the details, all the troubles, all the corrective actions and non-actions and tricks countries trying to pull to stave off migrants from getting to them. And we're going to talk about all that. And you know, as usual, we will make a comparison with illegal migration experienced by us, the Bahamian people. So, lots of similarities, loads of reasons why this debacle must be handled with kid gloves. Please be sure to stay tuned. Our sponsors for tonight's show, you know the deal, One-on-One Pharmacy. Yes, they're located on East Street South. They're also located on Charles Sanders Highway, and a third one on location, about to be open very soon, I'm sure, in Freeport, Grand Bahama. You can fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. And you know, these days, you do things in advance, so you send in your prescription on oneononepharmacy.com. And when you reach the shop, listen to me, you will have your package ready. All you got to do is give them that little thing and you're straight. When you walk in the door, they treat you like royalty. Say hello to my good cousin, Steph. And if Shani in town, tell Shanti a hello for me too. Let them know Maritime Matters sent you. Even if you don't let them know, they treat you like royalty, but they'll treat you a little extra special. Tell them Maritime Matters sent me, and I come to pick up a little something. We are also sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. That's BMC. That's us. We do a full slate of ISPS Maritime Security Services. Everybody who knows what that is all about would know what we're all about. There's no need to go into details there. To the listening audience, it will be remiss of me, as always, to go any further and not introduce my wonderful producer, the man who got my back, the man who got it going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with all the power. He is fully able, quite capable, the one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. And he salutes the crowd as he always do. Thank you, sir. Oh, that man is all military, I tell you, boy. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 19:30 to 7:30 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The purpose of our show, to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities. Got a lot of young Bahamians getting in this maritime thing. We want to sensitize. There are a lot of opportunities, and I can tell you, anybody I know that qualified in the maritime field did well for themselves. We also covered current maritime issues, both domestically and internationally. And tonight, we're going to go deep into the international side of things and let you know exactly what's going on with the maritime feeds. It's just so much stuff, but, you know, we're going to try and keep it to migration in the Mediterranean Sea, because that alone can hold two shows. Halfway through the show, we will open the phone lines as usual. The number to call will be 326-888-9365. 8255. I think we go over it a little early tonight. We can know halfway. And you're all ready to call. You all let's roll with this, because there's a lot of information going to be lashing out tonight. Again, we want to highlight our maritime heroes, and we know who they are. Port Control Extraordinaire, Mr. Leon Flowers. Sloop Sailing Pioneer Legendary, Captain Rolly Gray. Olympic Sailing Champs, Cecil Cook and Sir Derwin Knowles. And of course, as we approach May 10th, you know May 10th is right around the corner. I mean, April just about here. And within weeks, we'll have May 10th. And we know that on May 10th, 1980, our most important maritime heroes has to be in the spirit of HMBS Flamingo champion skipper, Senior Commander Amos Roll, and of course, the other 18 crew members of the HMBS Flamingo on that fatal final voyage. And we know who they are. Let's do the roll call. The 4 that were actually slaughtered in action. These were the guys who lost their lives. Airplanes, military airplanes coming out of the sky. They could hardly see these planes. They just shooting rockets and turning to guns and shooting up in the water. And out of the 19, we lost 4. So I think we did okay, but one life is too much. The 4 that we lost, and I always continue to say, they didn't have a chance to even defend themselves. Mr. Fenric Stirrup, Mr. Austin Smith, David Tucker, Edward Williams. And we say we're going to name those 4 streets surrounding the roundabout at Coral Harbor after each one of those 4 to commemorate exactly what happened in the most disastrous maritime catastrophe in Bahamian history. We lost more men on the defense force. We lost more men in the police force. We lost a lot of people in this country. But the most disastrous of them all is the actual bombing of the HMBS Flamingo. Bar none. So Fenric Stirrup, we'll no longer have a Carmichael Road. We'll have Fenric Stirrup Road. I just hope all the government officials listening, because if this don't happen, something got to be wrong. Austin Smith, we're not going to change that Coral Harbor Road north, leading to the airport, to Austin Smith Road. We're not going to name that north, because on the south of that road, the same road, the one that go to Coral Harbor Base, that's going to be Brother David Tucker, our gunner. We're going to name that road. Our gunner will lead us to the base. And of course, Adelaide Road, which runs west from Coral Harbor Roundabout, all the way to Adelaide Village and beyond, that will no longer be Adelaide. That will now be Edward Williams Road. That's exactly what I am putting forward. And if anybody want to name some different streets, fine. But we need 4 streets, and 4 streets need to link to these 4 fellas, okay? Marines who lost their life during that fatal incident. And subsequent to their passing, or subsequent to that incident, we lost another 4 of the 19. Those 4, first one we lost, or the 5th one of the 19 on board the HMBS Flamingo, when it went down, would be Wilfred Cool Breeze Sands. Those of us who were in the defense force back in the day, we knew him well, and we know how cool Wilfred, they didn't call him Cool Breeze for nothing. He's one of the coolest officers you'll ever come across, I remember him very, very clearly, and you always feel comfortable walking up to him and talking to him, although he outranked you, because this young man was an officer from 1980. So by the time I joined the force, he was already a full sub-lieutenant, getting ready to be a lieutenant. Following Cool Breeze would be the great Dusty, Oscar Miller, and this one of 3 Hatchet Bay men that were actually on that ship when it was sank. So may Dusty, Cool Breeze, and all of the souls of those who have passed on since that incident continue to rest in peace. And following Dusty would be my brother in arms. He and I were very close. Thought he could play a little basketball, but I always used to beat him. But chef extraordinaire, man could have cooked, wet or rough, don't matter. He gonna get that meal together, and it's gonna be tasty. Leopold Kirby, we call him Leo Kirby. Ragged Island man, very good. And the 4th, last and certainly not least, the Führer himself, the captain of all captains, the most famous person ever walked through the doors of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force to date. That would be Senior Commander Amos Roll. And again, may all their souls continue to rest in peace. And ladies and gentlemen, as May 10th approach, we want you to bear in mind that we have 11 of the 19 crew members of the HMBS Flamingo still living amongst us. Let's look out for them. Let's find them. Let's seek them out. And if we pass them and we see them, let's give them a hug. Thank you, sir. I know you went through a lot. You went through what most Bahamians would never, ever go through. Thank you for being the man that you are, continuing on and standing firm. The great Captain Anthony Allens. You know, sometimes we wait until people pass on before we give them the accolades. I can tell you, these 11 people, we don't have to wait. We need to do it now, yeah? These guys made big sacrifices and without being properly handled after that ordeal, they went on. Some of them stayed in the Defense Force, made a career out of it, and B would just take it for granted that, oh man, he's just another Defense Force. No, this guy went through something no other Defense Force person ever went through. And I've been through a lot of sea times. I've been through a lot of arrests. I've been through fishing boats, drug boats, you name it. I've been doing it for years. And I can tell you, it ain't no easy thing. But to be attacked by military aircraft while you're there trying to do your job, that one I never experienced. So my hat's off to these men. And I continue to sing their praises and their songs because I know they must have gone through some stuff. And I know that they haven't been compensated. And I know that we got to keep pushing in order that they get their compensation that so justly deserve. We don't want 50 years or 100 years from now, boy, we really should have done more for them. No, let's do it. Let's do it while we could. Do it while they're still living. And the ones who died, of course, let their family be the recipient of what they went through. We got, after Captain Allens, in order of seniority on that vessel would have been Petty Officer Peterson James. Well, of course, he went on to retire as a Force Chief Petty Officer, now living in Abaco for the past many years. Oh, man, you're talking about a man of standards. You need to talk some more about Peterson James. And Brother James, I say thank you for all you did in the Defense Force, even after that incident. Because, you and I would have worked close together on many occasions. And, you have my utmost respect. You always did, and I'm sure you know that. We have Gregory Curry, the one we call Spook. Brother Curry, well, you know the time. You know how it was when we were in England and Cowes, the Isle of Wight, doing the Yellow Elder, the Samana, and the Port Nelson. And you were the man that showed us the way. You showed us how to do drills, how to do all these things. And I say thank you, man. And then you're still working and still carrying on. You're such a good man. Just keep that going. The great Denzel Clark. Another one from Hatchet Bay, Eleuthera. But we know that those Eleuthera guys could play up a softball and baseball. This was one of the greatest hitters out of Eleuthera. Home run after home run. Household name, Denzel Clark. Little that we know. Even me didn't know that he was on the Flamingo when that bombing took place. Denzel, I say to you, my brother, thank you so much. Keep up the good fight. Trevor Sands, as we call him, T. Sands, a man from back in the day, a Marine that, he was a hard-working fella. I remember T. Sands very well. Yeah, we used to carry him a little hard. Fellas like my seniors, I always remember my good friend Don well, but I can't talk bad about Don because Don is a good guy too. But T. Sands was one of the well-known Marines in the force. He left earlier than most of them, those who did leave. So he didn't stay there long, but he was long enough for me to meet him and know who he was. And I say thank you, Mr. Trevor Sands, for all you did on board the Flamingo and afterwards. John Wallace. I saw John this week somewhere. John, where you was? John Wallace and I sailed for years. And again, I didn't know John Wallace was part of that Flamingo crew. But yes, in hindsight, I say, he was very cool, brother. But you would always be able to tell that, he may or may not have gone through some stuff. Ragged Island man to the core. So Ragged Island men are good sailors. You ain't got to worry about them getting seasick. You ain't got to worry about them not being able to eat their food when the ship rocking like some of the other guys. So John, a seaman of all time, John went on to the port department, work on board the tugboats. And I don't know if he's quite retired as yet. But John, I see you from time to time, and thank you so much for what you contributed and for surviving and for continuing on, my friend. Keep the spirit moving, John. May I call Whitfield Neely's name? Captain Whitfield Neely. Okay, so he's the one that was one of the most junior persons on the Flamingo when it sank, right? And Whitfield, he graduated from Aquinas. I remember him very well because he was a tailor first, then he joined the family. I know all about the business, right? But Whitfield was one of the most junior, and he was the one that remained in the force and worked his way from Marine seaman all the way up to 4-ring captain. Do you know what it takes to do that? That's not an easy feat. Many officers that joined the Defense Forces officers would not have made the rank of captain. This man joined as a Marine seaman. Never skip a rank. Never swayed, but we all know what he was good for. So to the great Captain Whitfield Neely, I say thank you for all of your contributions, my friend, because you've made quite a lot of sacrifices. And, of course, you went on to be an ambassador of our country. Very fitting. And I hope that you get out there again and become ambassador. Because you're still young. You're a little older than me, but all us young, eh? Whitfield Neely, thank you very much, my friend. Willard Sanders, my good friend from Bamboo Town. I know him even before he joined the force, eh? Very good cook. Nobody could cook peas and rice better. And I know Leo Kirby was my boy, but I think Leo could have cooked peas and rice like my good friend Willard Sanders. I sailed with him numerous times. He was always there when we make a rest to give a hand. He'll come with the galley and take charge and good guy. Very, very understanding of what he have to do and how he fits in with the whole puzzle. And, I say to Willard Sanders, thank you for being there, my friend. Thank you for going through what you went through, surviving and continuing on. Keep it up. Anthony A.K. Russell. He had a brother named Eddie Russell. Everybody know Anthony Russell. Everybody knew Eddie Russell. Back in the day, everybody know everybody on the force. A.K. Russell, I didn't know you was ever on that ship, the Flamingo, when it sank. But I know now, and I say thank you for your contribution, because you went on like it didn't affect you. We may think it didn't, but it have to affect anybody who go through that. If I go through that, it will affect me tremendously. So A.K. Russell, I say, keep the faith, my brother. Keep up the good eye. I know you're on the pool table beating up everybody on pool, because it used to beat me up from back then. But anyway, it's all good, my brother. You army and you roll. So A.K. Russell, thank you so much. Eugene Blue Thompson. Eugene Blue Thompson. I keep it Blue. This is the man, I sat down and I talked with Blue and I watched tears come to his eyes when we was talking about this Flamingo incident. See, now I can tell you the hurt this man have and carried and still carrying. But he was never, ever compensated one dime for what he went through and what his family went through. So I say to Blue, engineer extraordinaire, the best lawnmower fixer in the country. And everybody know that who's do lawnmower work. Because, they don't leave him alone. Hard-working guy, good engineer, did his part, even worked at the prison and taught people how to do mechanic work and that type of thing. So, Blue, you did a lot. You continue to do a lot, my friend. You stood strong. You stood firm. You made it. Thank you so much. Last but not least, the final of the three from Hatchet Bay, the great Cladwell Farrington. Clady actually wrote a book, as we know. And his book is live and kicking. I got a couple copies. And it tells you the details of how they rounded up one another after they were told they got to go to sea to deal with this patrol. It tells you the first stop they made by, was it Key Lobos or Gwinch's Keys? One of those keys. Then he went to the next key. And after that, they went to Ragged Island and Anchor, and then they realized, boy, look here, the great Captain Amos Roll decided we're not going ashore, gentlemen. And he told you who was so disappointed because they really wanted to go ashore. And they went down to Key Santo Domingo. And en route to Key Santo Domingo, they saw that vessel, chased it down, and before they could take it in tow, what happened? The boat, the Cuban, apparently that boat radioed the Cuban officials, and they send the warplanes over, and they just sank. Brand new. I say brand new because the boat was built in 78. Destroyed in 1980. Only 2 years old. Millions of dollars weight of patrol boat. 4 men. Lives lost. So y'all got to get tired of me talking about this, because I could tell you, this affect me to the core. It continued to affect me. And what affects me and hurts me even more is that all of what these guys went through, not one dime of compensation. Yes, little recognition, and the recognition ain't come too good. Because like I said before, the vessels that they put those 4 men name on, Fenric, Star, Boston Smith, David Tucker, and Edward Williams, those vessels were 95-footer Coast Guard patrol boats that were decommissioned after 30 years in service. That's not fair. That is not fair. Anyway, moving forward, we got to correct these things, eh? Now, as we move on, let me see what time it is, because I just run out of time so quick. Everybody tell me, oh, you was running out of time too quick. You got to cut that out, man. You got to cut this thing short. All right, I ain't running out of too much time yet, because still got a couple of minutes left. And we ain't going to the first break. After we finish the first break, then, of course, we'll open the lines and come back and deal with the other stuff. You heard about the Nashville school shooting. That's a big thing in the news. I think it happened early this morning, or was it yesterday? I know it happened either today or yesterday. This Nashville school shooting. Audrey Haley. Who's Audrey Haley? A 28-year-old sissy woman that transgendered to a male. Killed 6 people, including 3 children, in a mass shooting. You know, there's to go to school with must be about 7 or 8 weapons. I mean, it had at least 3-4 weapons on what? He, she, I don't know what to call her. Him. And just going around trying to kill up everybody. Apparently, he, she is a former student. Attended that institution unwillingly. Didn't want to go there. I don't know why. And is simply seeking revenge 10 years at the age of 28. Years later, why don't let it dead? You got to go and kill. Well, I mean, you want to commit suicide, kill yourself. But this is not a good thing. This is a bad thing, eh? But that's what's in the news, people. So we'll talk about that real quick. And then we'll move to all these big protests we have in worldwide. You know, I always talk about Lincoln being in his contingent doing protests. But if we check the news, the international news right now, it's being bombarded with what's going on in Paris. In a big first world city like France, like Paris in France. Over 1 million protesters crammed the streets over the past weeks to pressure President Macron to withdraw action to raise retirement pension minimum age from 62 to 64. He want to raise the pension from age 62. People wake all their life and they get 62, they figure, boy, I could retire now and have a good pension. He said, no, you got to wait 2 more years. You know how people talking about, we retire at 65. Well, we have early retirement at 60. But I hear some people talking about they're gonna do something about that. They can make some adjustment to that. And we have to retire at 67. These people, millions of people protesting because they want to retire at 65. Why you want us to go all the way to 67? You don't want us to get anything? Come on, man, you wake all your life. Let us get something. Leave that where that is. That's what I would recommend. Leave that where that is. Because this from 62 to 64 is causing world chaos. King Charles was scheduled to visit Paris. And he had to postpone it due to the possible impact of this unrest. You can't have a whole king in the middle of all of that. And these people after Macron. The king may get one, what they call it? One unintended something. So today, President Macron conceded to postponement. He put it off for a couple of weeks. of that proposal due to the strength of the massive protests. But you know, it is what it is. He probably gonna have to withdraw that eventually, because the people are easing up, and that's what we need to do, people. When you have something to protest for that is worthy, and we need to get serious, and we should be able to protest without worrying about getting locked up, eh? When we can get past that stage in this country. No, we're not a first world country, but we in this world, we should be free to do peaceful protests. It ain't a million, even one little handful of people and they want to lock you up. Nonsense. Another big protest. Hundreds of thousands of people in Israel, Tel Aviv. You know what they protesting over? They protesting over the Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu. He wants to change the country's judiciary rules so that when the courts make a final decision, the parliament could overturn it. You could hear such nonsense. Why the parliament want to get into the judiciary or control the judiciary? I thought the whole idea of freedom was the judiciary is free to do what they have to do. And the politicians are also subject to judiciary. And he had a case going on that caused him to want to do this. Because when they elected him, and you know why they elected him? Because they didn't want the other person to win. Just like how we used to here now. So we tired of that one. We didn't want to win, so we vote the next one in, right? And we probably could do that for a long time. But it's the same thing everywhere in the world. When the people had the choice between Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden, they probably didn't want none of them. But you see how tight it was? At the end of the day, they got to go with one. So in this case, they went with Benjamin Netanyahu for another lap. And before he came in, he was charged with some minor stuff that, you know, some investigations was going on with him. And now he want to be able to overturn whatever courts do because he's involved. Talk about corruption, worldwide corruption. So in the process of all these protests and stuff going on in Israel, the prime minister fired his deputy minister for speaking in favor of withdrawing the controversial plan. So his defense minister, not deputy, defense minister, correction. His defense minister was kind of like getting along with the people, say, man, this really ain't right. We really shouldn't be doing this. And he said, okay, my brother, you're not serving at my pleasure anymore. You out of here. So the defense minister was fired. What are some of the maritime impact from these unrests? Particularly the one in France, right? Now that Europe has weaned its utility sector off of Russia pipeline gas, in other words, you know, the European countries, most of them is getting gas through pipelines from Russia. But after the Ukraine war started, they decided, well, we ain't really into Russia have too much control. We can't control them if we have to keep depending on gas from them. Gas and oil and gas as they call it. So they are heavily dependent on LNG to meet demand and keep historically high gas prices from going higher. So they try to cut Russia off, which they did to some extent, and started to bring in from elsewhere. It's costing them a couple dollars more. But now to keep it from going higher, they got to make sure, do what they have to do to keep. But what this all this rivalry going on with President Macron is trying to do by increasing the age for people to retire, part of the strike to support some of the protests or support the overall protests, the giant French trade union shut down operations at all 4 of the nation's LNG import terminals. So France don't make no gas. So everywhere where the LNG gas comes in, and they depend heavily on LNG because that's what operate their BEC, their plants with all the power to power the whole country and this and that. They got 4 main terminals, and all 4 of them was shut down until the end of March, according to the Natural Gas Intelligence. The action is just a small but very disruptive part of a nationwide protest against plans to raise the French retirement age from 62 to 64. Kepler, or KPLER, assesses that the last vessel that discharged cargo at one of the 4 terminals finished offloading on the 5th of March. So from the 5th of March, and it's still going on, they just shut down the gas coming in because they want President Macron to understand we serious. And at least 7 cargoes have been sent elsewhere in Europe. So they had 7 ships coming to offload gas. And they had to take them somewhere else. Excuse me. Because the people were serious. They said, look here, you ain't bringing that here. Because until our president understand what we need done, we shutting this operation down. Of course, it don't only affect them. I guess it affect President Macron less than them, because he probably got his big generator sitting up home. And of course, the House of Assembly and all them, they got their generators in place. But these people just want to know, we serious, we ready to take blows just to make sure you don't do this. The unionized workers have also gone on a modified strike at the 5 French refineries operated by Total Energies. So they just refine oil, and those refineries, all 5 of them, the workers went on strike. Facilities continue to operate, but workers have restricted product from leaving for sale. They are continuing to make stuff, but it can't leave. So they only could put it in storage tanks. Instead, the refinery's output has gone primarily into on-site storage tanks. At the petroleum port of Levara on the Mediterranean, dockers have gone on strike through March 20th, preventing crude tankers from unloading or product tankers from taking on cargo. So not only gas carriers, even product tankers, crude oil tankers, all of them, they basically can't come to France right now. They're not allowing them. They're not facilitating them. So there you go. That is what happens when you carrying on with a big strike. Well, not a strike, a protest, a big protest, to make sure your government understands you are not going to allow them to do what is not right. In their view, find another way. Don't make me wait till I'm 64. So, with that, I say we're talking maritime, people. You're listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break. When we return, we will move deep into a little domestic maritime, but mainly international maritime stuff, eh? We're talking about the migration in the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa to Europe. So, people, stay tuned.
In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on Maritime Matters. And it's time for us to do a little speed up operation here. As you know, we're dealing today with basically migration in the Mediterranean Sea. At this point, we're going to open the lines. And I repeat, our numbers to call is 326-8255, 326-8255. What's going on the local front? Let's get that out of the way. We got an update on the Shantytown deal, eh? As we said last week, big money is being generated to the landlords, the landowners, the vendors. 200 by 50 equals $10,000 per week, $500,000 annually. That money is shared up with the landowners and the landlords. So, big money going on. So why do you think they want these shanty towns to stop? They don't. Do we want it to stop? Well, I think Lincoln Bain and his crew does. How much does we, you and me do to say that we want to make this stop? Because if the government ain't hearing nothing from nobody, ain't nothing gonna happen. Okay. I haven't heard nothing from the protesters in a while, but I'm sure they're not turning their back on anything. But what's going on? The Court of Appeal have been asked to overturn the Supreme Court ruling. So the Supreme Court ruled that, look here, the government could go ahead and get rid of these, man. Because, I mean, they're violating all kinds of laws. And some people in their infinite wisdom, some entities, decided that they're going to challenge that because they feel like the government shouldn't be able to break down these homes. So they went and they're considering, I don't know if they did it as yet, asking the Supreme Court, asking the Court of Appeal to overturn that action that the Supreme Court concluded. In my opinion, we should target the property owners. I said that last time and I could say it again. The property owners. Because the property owners allow violations of Ministry of Works Building Code. The property owners allow violations of Department of Environmental Health Services. So how about doing what we intended to do many years ago? Just prosecute the landowners. Ensure that the opportunity to accommodate these shanty towns on private land is not an option. We don't want it to even be an option in our town. We don't want you to have a chance to do that. We want you to feel like if you allow it, you could be faced with prosecution and jail time and fines and all the rest of it. And I'm sure we can do that now. But anyway, I ain't getting in politics. All I'm saying is there are more ways to skin this cat. Even if they put a stay on it, we have other ways we can deal with this by dealing with the property owners. And if government own it, well, that's a no-brainer, eh? Can't be on government land and ain't got no documents to be there, no rights to be there, and you just taking charge of government land. No, we can't have that. That's the easiest one to deal with. We should apply relevant enforcement on the employers of inappropriately documented migrant employees. So if you hire somebody to do anything, especially these big companies, some of these big food stores and all the rest of that stuff, you hire people to work, you got to make sure they have the appropriate employment documentation. If they don't have a Bahamian passport, well, first of all, you need them to have a Bahamian passport. If they don't have that, then they need to have the proper work permit for what they're going to do. Not a work permit to be a gardener and they in the food store packing shelf or they in the gas station pumping gas. That's not gardener. So that's where we need to go. We need to just apply the laws that we have in place so that it wouldn't be comfortable for people to feel like they can get into the Bahamas and live okay. Mind you, to say their final destination. A lot of them really don't want to be here. They prefer to be somewhere else, right? To some first world country. But when they get here, if they have a ease of life that is far better than where they come from, they might want to live. Because if we ain't applying our laws, I told you from last week, Cuba is less than 200 miles away from Haiti. Jamaica is less than 200 miles from Haiti. Nassau is over 400 miles, almost 2.5 times the distance. And before they get to Nassau, there's a litany of family islands that they refuse to stop to. Because they know if they stop to Inagua, they can't settle in. Inagua only got one settlement and a handful of people. How they can blend into that? There ain't no shanty town there. I wouldn't talk about Auckland's and Crooked Island. Then on the next side, you get Long Island if they come through Mirror Provost and go into Novitas Light. And then they got Ragged Island on that side. Well, how much people in Ragged Island? You can't blend in. Even Exuma, it's very difficult to blend in. Now, some of them got the Exuma now, don't get me wrong. Plenty working in Exuma right now, so plenty of them in Exuma. But I say it's difficult for them to blend in because most of the time they come to Exuma, they're coming from the western side, right? And that western side, there's a bunch of swamps and ain't much settlements out there. And it's easy to go pick them up later. And mosquito will have killed them before you reach them anyway. So it's hard for them to get into Exuma. Cat Island, don't waste your time. Eleuthera, well, South Eleuthera, you could be in trouble. Now, if you get up in Harbour Island area, you might be able to blend in somehow, but the boats don't go around the ocean side. I talking about the route I know they take. So, but they pass all of these places and they find their way all the way up to Nassau. Why? Because Nassau got shanty towns. You got a call on the line? Caller, you're on Maritime Matters. Good night.
Hey, good night, Glenn. Be in the family.
Top shape, my brother. How are you?
I good. Top shape and getting better.
And getting better all the time. You know the time.
I don't want to identify myself, but you probably know me. But I want us to chime in on you with the target in their home, their property owners.
Yes, sir.
We need to go beyond that. We need to target the corporation. We need to find out why people have EPLs need to suck up on these shanty towns. And there's no occupancy certificate.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that we need to do the building code first of all, right? Yes. We have rights to address them from the building code, which includes all of that. Because if you ain't get the approval from Ministry of Works, you can't get BC to hook you up. Well, you shouldn't.
Yeah, but they there. The fact of the matter is, users are there. And not only in shanty towns, you got some homes in the Eastern District.
Yes, sir.
With no occupancy certificates, which I know they don't have any, and they still have BPL. They still have water and sewage.
That's right, but what?
How to get your stuff? You know what I mean? These stuff need to be investigated.
Absolutely,
and persons who commit these offenses against the act, they need to be prosecuted.
They need to be prosecuted.
We have to stop it at some point. We have to stop the guys from DPL and other corporations from giving these people, these managers at the Bahamians have to fight for to get.
I agree.
They have to fight to get plans. They have to fight to get occupancy. They have to fight to pay their taxes. And others are not doing it. So we need to get it done, bro.
So first of all, if they on a private land and they're able to get those things, the landowner should be held accountable, eh?
Of course.
So let's go after the landowner.
Who installing them? Listen, I have properties and I have to fight for people to come out to do their work.
I agree.
But that's what I'm paying them to do.
That's right.
So let alone these shanty towns where these people have gone and knocking on these meters and telling them.
And the amount of money they're making from these shanty towns, they ain't gonna never stop. Because the landowner will get $200,000 a year. You think he care about whether those things I'm doing things properly or whether, and it's on his land. So you know there was a time when the government decided they are going after the landowners and they hold breaks.
Yeah, but I support the government and what they're doing. I don't have nothing against any foreign person come to this country to live, but come legally and do what every Bahamian has to comply with the law.
Exactly.
As simple as that. Anybody hate Haitians or Jamaicans or Chinese or whoever it is.
No, just.
Hate that. But if we as Bahamians who have to follow the regulations, then they too must follow it. There's no issue with it.
I couldn't have said it better, my brother. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Patience forever.
My arm barely paces forever. You know I know who this is. I ain't calling no name. No, sir. Yeah, you and all your brothers take care too, man.
All right, will do.
Roger. Oh, yeah, it's a very good friend of mine. And he knows exactly what's going on. He knows it even better than me. I can tell you that much. But we need to make sure we do whatever we could do. We don't have to wait for the court order to do some of these things. We have ministries with the mandate to ensure you as a Bahamian go put up one piece on your house and see what can happen, and you ain't got no permit number from Ministry of Works, and you ain't getting proper approval. See if you'll ever get that hooker from BC. You might sneak water from somewhere else, and water and sewers don't know about it, but you ain't gonna get that hooker from BC. And if the Ministry of Works people find out, and even if your neighbor call them, you will be breaking that down in a jiffy, because they're not gonna let you do it. So the same people who can stop you can allow the immigrants to build as they please with no stops, and they know where all them are. The government know where every shanty town is. The government know where all these houses that are not compliant with the building code and not complying with the environmental requirements for toilets and cesspools and all the rest of that stuff. They know where they are, and they just allowing it to go on. But like I say, we don't have to worry too much about that, Once we start off by dealing with the landowners, and we start locking up some of them, the government ain't got no issues. If you're on government land, we could deal with that. We ain't got to go through no landowner to deal with you. We could deal with that. But the landowners, the private landowners, let's deal with them. And they will make sure they ain't going to get locked up, and nobody can be on their property doing unregulated buildings and making up all this money, doing all this stuff. And that's where we need to go with this. Let's go back, and it's the reason why the government wanted to do it before, It didn't happen by chance. So once we deal with those landowners, and once we deal with the employers, you employ somebody and they don't have the proper documentation. First of all employers should ask for Bahamian status. Let me see your passport. I need a copy of your passport and your driver's license if you got one, but you gotta have a passport. If you ain't got no passport, bring your affidavit, bring something to say you're a Bahamian. And if you're not a Bahamian, bring something to say you have permission to do this job. Not you have a work permit to do something else. No, to do this job. Otherwise, I'm sorry, I can't hire you. And then the authorities should be going to these places and doing spot checks and finding out and charge the employer, put them before the courts, lock one of them up. And I could guarantee you will have a mass exodus from the Bahamas. We wouldn't even have to worry about no repatriation exercise. There'll be no need for that. We don't have to worry too much about defense force about stopping them at sea. Because if they can't get work when they come here, you think they will come be on the sea for 400 miles to get to Nassau? No, sir. They don't want to do that. Okay, we got line 3. Line 3 will be with you in 1 second. Last but not least, the shanty towns will just go away. Because if they can't get a private landowner and they can't get government land, they can't have no more shanty town. So even if once you here, get yourself a proper apartment with proper flushing toilets, with proper building structure, and we ain't got no problem with you. Now, I know how you can work, but we got to work that one out. Caller, you on the line. Maritime Matters, hello.
Yes, hello. This is my first time calling.
Appreciate the call, my brother.
Huh?
I appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, speaking about these immigrants and all that type of stuff, and I heard you mention about the landowners and all that type of stuff. So, what about the people them who hiring the contractors them with hiring all these illegal immigrants?
Yeah, I was just talking about the employers, I said the employers, we want to lock some of them up too.
Yeah, man, just guess what? There's no law for them. They, in spite of what the government trying to do and saying, they're still there doing the same thing. Just everywhere you go, they're still there trying to employ these illegal immigrants. And right now, I have a lot of brothers and stuff, them who right now are looking for jobs and stuff. A lot of people, I don't know, for some reason, they refuse to hire Bahamians. So I don't know if it's because of the cheap labor or whatever it is. But the government needs to crack down on those people, these employees.
That's
because they're the ones who keeping them in the country. If they don't have can't make them money, then,
I agree with you, Colin. That's the biggest item, dealing with the employers. You see, we need to lock up some of them. We need to put, mind you, the Immigration Act states that they will be in violation if they hire somebody if they hire a foreigner without the appropriate documents, it's in the act. It didn't say what you could do to them. Now, that's where we need some teeth. I went back and I read the Immigration Act just to see what's supposed to happen. It says that any employer who basically goes contrary to this provision, I forget exactly what section it is because that ain't too important, will be in violation of this act. That's what it says. Now, it didn't say what can happen penalty-wise, but I'm sure there's some penalty, and if you take them to court, something got to happen. But my thing is, that act needs to now say what got happen to the employer, how much years he can get, or how much fine he can get for each person, and all the rest of that. Because these employers only do this because the authorities are allowing them to get away with it.
Exactly.
Too much slackness in our country.
You know something too? The government have to be more vigilant with these employees with these things. Most every week, you see, I quite sure all of them don't have a license to be cleaning all these guys. A lot of Bahamians to do that could be a business, some type of revenue for a lot of families. A lot of people can't do their own yard, but they only when you look at it, they're the only kind of people you see if they clean and yard, that's a business, that's something. I can do that.
Yeah, but you understand.
I can make money from too.
You gotta understand, we Bahamian people are our own enemies in some ways because we hire them knowing that we shouldn't hire them. Because whenever they get a work permit, that work permit specifies, and guess what? Somebody got to apply for work permit for one of them. So if I apply for work permit, I can't apply for work permit for them to go do someone else's yard,
That's what's taking place.
I can only apply for them to be my gardener. And if they doing someone else's yard, they're in violation of the law. And the Bahamian who hired them to do their yard will be in violation of the law as well. But the authorities just ain't checking because they're comfortable being slack.
I can go on no names or say that, right? But I'm an electrician, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have no license, right? But I'm a good. I don't brag when I sell, but I know I'm a good electrician. But every place I go to do my work, there's always patients, them around doing something in these areas. When, these attractors, them have them doing these things. I quite sure some of them even can't speak English.
Man, some of those jobs you go on.
All over the place. I'm quite sure a lot of them ain't straight.
A lot of them are now contractors,
Yeah, exactly.
And when you
places you go, there you have to try. Well, you working, you second to them, you working under them.
Man, you can't get no job where it is because when that contractor they go in the village, they go in the shanty town, and they get laborers from there because they can pay them peanuts. They can pay them peanuts, and that's how they can underbid me and you who license and who have rights to do those jobs. They can outbid us. So
man, look, we get it bad, man. The government really got to do something to these same people.
Yeah, the immigration department got to go on some of these construction sites.
What's so hard about all these new buildings with building? If the government needs was serious about this situation, all they know, I'm quite sure the government know whatever new building around here. I'm quite sure they should have a special team or somebody to go around to see what building up and what building coming up in this country. And to see who all employed it is, they could get them if they want to. They could stop them and put an end to all this foolishness.
Yeah, they could put an end to it, but
it's because they have them here working, nursing them. If you can't make your money to support your family to be here, you only want to be here.
Caller, let me tell you something I know.
I'm making more money than you.
I agree with you 1,000 times, my brother. But I thank you so much. I thank you so much for your contribution and
thank you so much.
Take care of yourself, man. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, too. You have a good night. Good job you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Caller, you on line 4. Maritime Matters. Thank you for calling.
Yes. Good night, Mr. Bain. You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for calling.
Okay, Berenice Johnson.
Hey, Miss Johnson.
Nice. The solutionized.
Well, everybody know the great Berenice Johnson, so I don't want you to think I don't know who you are.
I thank you. See, because I come to, and I always defend the 3 prime ministers and the late Sir Lyndon link with this immigration matter. We were dealing with a pilot project. It's going on now 42 years. And I've left a number for Mr. Wayne Monroe, the Minister of National Security, to return the call because we can deal with this amicably, okay? We have had all the situations We know who's getting the money. We know who is behind it all. Several expatriates. Okay? So I'm on this air. I have been maliciously deprived because many of our police women who were part of this, it had to take police women before the Defense Force people came in 1985.
That's right.
Now, we have a solution where it's exploitative with COI, with Mr. Lincoln Day, because I spoke with him. He knows me very well, and we know who are dealing with this situation. Now, all of this riffraff and nonsense, we know who are getting the money, and mainly it's women, not men, you know.
Wow.
To put the men up to certain things. We have transnational organized crime. I tried to get my own show, and it was refused by certain people who advised Mr. Jones Sr., okay? So I am on the airwave, and I speak authoritatively to the solution, reference to that. And when we have the hearing, at the live hearing at the Paul Ferguson Center, which should come up shortly, all of the national insurance issue where they need to increase. No, we have the solution. I shared it in 1992 in the forum at FNM headquarters. I told them it has to be addressed. And now they want to increase. No, our people don't need any more taxes. Okay, we need to put our people in homes. Now, I thank you for taking my call, Mr. Glenn Bain.
Thank you so much, Miss Veronice Jones. I appreciate the call, and you take care of yourself.
And you too, also. I'm waiting for them to show up here now because I am still in the pilot project house through Hay Street.
Wow.
I don't have no problem in sharing where I live because this is a geopolitical solution, a pilot project.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, and God bless you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it? They know everything. Just had two callers that said basically, look, they know who the people are that own this land. They know who the people are that hiring these people. They know where these buildings are that are being built without proper building permit and building control supervision, and ain't nobody checking. So doesn't that boil down to slackness? Slackness on behalf of our Ministry of Works, whoever responsible, and I always say the buck stops at the top. I ain't talking about no particular minister, you know. I talk about ministers going back 25, 30 years, even beyond that, straight into the Cylinder Pillen era. And you know, he's my hero, I can let you know now if you didn't know. And we also talking about Department of Environmental Health Services. All the way back 40, 50 years. Let's get with the program. Who in the chair now needs to do something? Don't let the status quo continue and you didn't do anything. Because we looking, we aware, and we're not going to just accept that anymore. So, ladies and gentlemen, I move to my second session for the night. Lord, I only got a half hour left. Boy, time could move, eh? But anyway, this is the International Maritime Matters. And we start with what Italy did a couple weeks back. Italy's parliament approves measure to restrict NGO rescue vessel. NGO means non-government organization. They have rescue vessels that are built and designed to go out there and rescue. They call it SAR, search and rescue. They have vessels that are purposefully built to go in any kind of weather. They can even turn upside down and they right themselves without any effort. And these vessels have been bought by international bodies to go out there and rescue people of the Mediterranean Sea because they know that there were many deaths as a result of rickety boats trying to get people from Northern Africa across the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. Because once they get to Europe, usually because they are political and poverty and all the rest of that, they flee in for better way of life, they would not send them back. But now, I guess Europe say we don't got too much people. They something like us. We don't get too much of them. I mean, what we can do? We can't sustain them. And if we apply our laws the way we need to, we wouldn't have to worry too much about sustaining them, because they ain't gonna be able to wake and they can find someplace where they just like how they avoiding Cuba and avoiding Jamaica and avoiding the family island, they'll start avoiding Nassau and everywhere else. So it's all about the authorities. It's all about the authorities. So what Italy Parliament did is they got together and they decided that these rescue boats that are based in Italy, first of all, Italy go north-south. Italy, you got Sicily with Palermo and them at the very southern end, where all the mafia them was. And then up in the northern area, they got Rome and those other like Trieste and place. So what they do is they stopped them from, I can read on, right? NGOs and humanitarian groups involved in search and rescue missions in the Central Mediterranean. Italy has moved to impose stricter conditions on humanitarian organizations that rescue migrants who continue to risk their lives to cross the Mediterranean to Europe. This week, the Italian Chamber of Deputies passed a decree that outlines tough requirements for search and rescue organizations, and the measures include stiff penalties. The decree was created by the right-wing government, claiming that maritime migration is an urgent crisis for Italy. And that's what we say all the time, it's an urgent crisis for the Bahamas. It's an urgent crisis for Italy. The proposed regulation requires humanitarian rescue to head to port immediately after each rescue. So those ships, when they go out and they make a rescue, they can't hang around looking for another rickety boat. Once they rescue one boat, they got to come straight in. And it goes on to say, foregoing additional rescues, even if they are in the vicinity of people in distress. So even if they could see someone else in distress, once they rescue people from one boat, they got to bring them in. And then they got to go back out if they want to go back out. But they ain't going to stay out there till later and get a whole heap of people. Because what are Italy trying to do? They're trying to cut down on the amount of people these rescue boats bringing in. That's what they're really doing. They ain't fooling nobody, right? So, in the past, the search and rescue vessels have carried out multiple rescue operations over a period of several days. So, these vessels used to go there, and if they grab a crew, they would feed them, give them water, get them warm, and they hang around to see if anybody else before they come in, because they know it's a long way in. But now when they go in, Italy got to accept these people. Whether they put them in concentration camps or the detainment camps or whatever you call it, or they mesh them into society, we don't know. But we know one thing, they can't send them back out to sea, right? So, crews on board the ships must register every person who is planning to ask for international protection. So once the rescue boat get them, anybody who is asking for international protection, they say, oh, well, we trying to be protected because they killing up everybody in our country, or we're trying to be protected because our country ain't got no more money, we poor, we need to go someplace where we can make a living, we can't eat. So with the NGOs, so they're saying you ask for those who are asking for international protection, write their names down. And the NGOs or the non-government organizations or the rescue boats that fail to comply with the new rules being subject to administrative sanctions, fines, and have their vessels seized. So you could have sanctions. Sanctions mean they're not supporting you no more with no fuel or whatever they're helping you with. Sanctions mean they could fine you so much thousands of dollars. And sanctions could mean your vessel gets seized. Although you're an NGO out there to rescue people, that's your job, you're being supported by certain entities. They saying if you don't do what they say, if you go out there and you want to hang around and bring in more than one boat, then when you come in, you got to be faced with a heavy iron, eh? Because Italy wants you bringing in all these people. So the proposed law has been condemned by the UN. The United Nations say, man, look, you can't do that. Which has expressed concern that it will hinder the provision of life-saving assistance by search and rescue organizations in the central Mediterranean, resulting in more deaths at sea. So the United Nations realized what's going on. They said, now, Italy, if you all do this, I know you all say you all can do it, but if you all do this, you can cause more people die. You think Italy really care? I can't talk for Italy, but boy, from the sounds of things, I'm sure they really care. We all watch with horror the plight of those crossing the Mediterranean, and the desire to end that suffering is profound. But this is simply the wrong way to address this humanitarian crisis, said the UN Human Rights Chief. His name is Volker Turk. I could say that without cussing. He added that more people in distress will be made to suffer and more lives risked being lost because timely help will not be available if the law is passed by Italy's Senate. Italy done passed that. You think they're checking for United Nations? This is what's going on. And I can tell you, if we in the Bahamas do not rescue those rickety vessels when we come across them, and there's some, I wonder if you all remember the key low blows. This even before I joined the Defense Force. They had a whole heap of Haitians on key lobos, and a patrol boat went out there, and they started to rush the patrol boat because they was hungry, they wanted water, and the fellas had to defend themselves. Next thing you know, CNN or some news entity out of the US, they say the Bahamians beaten and throwing blows on the migrants who are already weak. Mind you, they was right, but you got to defend yourself. You got a boat. We got a patrol boat with 14, 16 people, and they got on that key about 200-300 people. You better take charge of them, and sometimes you might have to let go and blow. Otherwise, they put you down and take your gun and beat you. But anyway, I don't know all the details. I wasn't on Defense Force yet, but I know that was a big thing. Because one thing with these human rights people, that's Amnesty International and places like that. They don't care if you're military or not. They don't, and that's why I told somebody the other day, and I had a very good caller who said to me, boy, let them stay out there, let them kill each other. No, you can't do that, because now you're supposed to be trained, and if we go there and we allow them to cause more death, then we could be held accountable. So you got to remember, these people are basically fleeing, looking for better life. So the least we could do is rescue them from dying, right? And that's what it's all about. So he added that more people in distress will be made to suffer and more life risk being lost because timely help would not be available if the law is passed, right? These measures are clearly designed to hinder the NGOs, the non-government organizations, the rescue boats, undertaking life-saving search and rescue missions in the central Mediterranean. This is part of an effort to ensure that as many people as possible are instead intercepted by Libyan Coast Guard and returned to Libya, where they face arbitrary detention and torture. So what they don't want is they don't want the Libyan Coast Guard, although the UN give money to the Libyan Coast Guard to rescue people off Libya, and when they find them, but what the Coast Guard were doing is they was bringing them back to Libya. And when they come back, they face with even worse turmoil than before they left. They throw blows on them, they torture them, and like I say, Libyan Coast Guard, and return to Libya where they face arbitrary detention and torture. This is what one of the Amnesty International migration researchers said. At the same time, Italy has designated distant ports of disembarkation for people rescued at sea. So when they rescue them, they can't just bring them to Sicily, Palermo, someplace close. They tell them, bring them all the way up to Naples or bring them all the way up to Trieste, because they want to delay that boat, make them go further, make them need more fuel before they go back out to do more rescuing, because that means less people coming into Italy, eh? That's a strategy. I mean, come on, they trying to do something, but you know, we don't think it's fair, but I guess that's the same way they'll think, but the Bahamians, if we do similar tactics. The long transit have the effect of reducing the number of vessels or assets in the rescue zone at any given time, according to the NGO operators. Libya has in recent years emerged as the dominant transit point for migrants from Africa and the Middle East, trying to make it to Europe. And you notice they say the Middle East? Why they included the Middle East? Because these are not black Africans as we know it, you know. Most of these people who are fleeing are from Syria, Iraq, and those countries that are devastated. I want you to think these people from South Africa and Uganda, mind you, you can have some of them too, but the larger proportion of them are the Syrians and the Iraqis. So they go on to say migrants from Africa and Middle East trying to make it to Europe. In 2022, more than 1,450 migrants died. Not cross now, plenty make it. But 1,500 died in the waters of the central Mediterranean. I don't think we have nowhere near that number of migrants died trying to come to the Bahamas. But of course, the Bahamas, our waters ain't bad like the Mediterranean Sea gets, especially in the winter. Our waters are good compared to this. Since 2014, almost 20,000 migrants are known to have perished on the crossing, accounting for 80% of the deaths recorded in the whole Mediterranean Sea. Now you have all kind of ships sometimes crashing and bulkers just breaking in half and stuff in the Mediterranean Sea. So more than 80% of the people that died in the Mediterranean Sea were migrants on rickety boats. Under international law, a captain is duty bound to render immediate assistance to people in distress at sea. Under the new Italian law, a nearby search and rescue vessel would be obligated or obliged to breach this duty and ignore the distress calls of those at sea. Because if they go to one boat, they can't go to another one. Because if they go to more than one, and the Italian authorities find out, they impose sanctions on them, or they could fine them, or they may just take their boat. So simply by virtue of having already saved others. By complying with this provision, NGOs, non-government organizations, again, shipmasters would, in fact, fail to fulfill their rescue duties under the international law, the law of the sea. Commissioner for Human Rights of the NGO Umbrella Group Council in Europe. That's what the commissioner said. So you have this big conflict where they're being told by Italy that if you go to sea to rescue people, you're only rescuing people from one boat. If you see another boat in the area and people need rescuing, you got to leave them alone. Come bring these set and then go back. But according to the UNCLOS, which is the law of the sea, it says that if you're a captain or if you're on a vessel and you see a vessel in distress, you are obligated, you have to help them. Otherwise, you're in violation of the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. So what do? Well, of course, they're based in Italy. So, I mean, the good thing about it is Italy will apply their laws domestically. Because ain't no country really, when you're talking about the United Nations is a group of countries. They don't deal with enforcing no laws. They do it through countries. So I would suggest those NGOs pay attention to what Italy says to them. So the proposed law also increases the odds of Libyan Coast Guard interception of migrant vessels, likely resulting in higher number of migrants returning to Libya. So what the UN is trying to do, or the EU is trying to do, is they're trying to tell Italy, look, man, you can't leave them there because the Libyan Coast Guard may come across them. If the Libyan Coast Guard come across them, they take them back, they can hold them hostage, they can throw blows on them, they probably can even turn them over to somebody who would say, be holding them until we get some money for them. All kind of things going on. It's terrible. Terrible. Okay, we only got 12 minutes left. Wow. Is that my night gone just like that? That is not good. Well, let me try to wrap this up as soon as I could in this time allotted. Now we got the words from the Amnesty International. You know, the Amnesty International always have big talks on these type of things because as far as they're concerned, everybody should be free to do whatever they want in anybody's country. And I think the world needs Amnesty International because some countries really go overboard with taking advantage of people that end up in their country, right? So the Amnesty International called on the European Union to stop working with the Libyan Coast Guard, which is receiving EU assistance in its counter-human trafficking. So the EU, because the EU don't really want the migrants cross the Mediterranean and come to them, They feed the Libyan Coast Guard with boats and money and fuel, and because they want them to stay in Libya. So this big fight between Amnesty and EU against the individual countries is a big thing going on, because Amnesty and the EU is saying, we don't want the Libyans get them because we know they could be in more trouble. And the European countries like France and Italy and Spain and them are saying, but we ain't want them, yo. What we can do with them? We don't have too much of them. So it's a big, what you call, push and pull situation going on here, right? So the EU, the European Union, is allowing the Libyan Coast Guard to return refugees and migrants to a country where unlawful detention, torture, and rape are the norm. They are increasing the capacity of the Libyan Coast Guard while turning a blind eye to the inherent grave risks of such cooperation. So what they're saying is, they know all this nonsense going on, but yet they're turning a blind eye to it. Amnesty's European Institution Office, in a statement issued Tuesday, EU leaders need to urgently stop externalizing border control and asylum processing to foreign governments. Instead, leaders need to prioritize saving lives, offer safe and legal routes for people fleeing, and dramatically improving rule of law and protection of human rights. So what they're saying is, look out for the people. Don't worry about what these countries trying to do. We know these countries got little issues with migrants, but the migrants come in. You ain't want them dead. You ain't want them go back to Libya. Let's try to work with them. So we wish they'd do that when slavery is going on. Anyway, Libyan Coast Guard forces have been accused of abusing refugees in the past, even before bringing them back to shore. Once returned to Libya, maritime migrants face imprisonment in Libya jails and detention camps where conditions are reportedly severe. One refugee told Amnesty that on his first attempt to reach Italy, he was picked up by the Libyan Coast Guard and held for ransom. He reported that he was beaten regularly by the authorities until his family came up with the money to buy his freedom. On his second attempt, he got gone through all that and try again. On his second attempt to make the crossing, he was arrested by police and sold to traffickers. So it ain't easy, It ain't easy trying to do this crossing. Because if you get catch, unlike how we just return you to where you come from, these fellas can throw blows on you. They can sell you to fellas that are trying to make money off you. They can rape you. So that's a bad thing, So that is what is going on in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, 29 people died as maritime migration from Tunisia accelerated. Where's Tunisia? Tunisia is basically right next door, right? Tunisia is right next door to Libya. Bigger than Libya. Huge. Oh, we got a call on line one. Caller, good night to you. Welcome to Maritime Matters.
Yes, I'm listening to the gentleman speaking in reference to the migrants coming across from Africa into Europe.
That's me, sir.
And the recommendations and the proposals that you're making is inaccurate.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Craig Flowers. I happened to live in Libya for 14 years, and as a Bahamian, I know quite differently in reference to the migrants that is leaving the North African coast seeking amnesty into Europe. Can be any parts thereof, certainly. We know the northern coast of Africa. We know the entries into any part of Europe. Why we keep referring to Italy? Because it's a common ground where work and labor is needed more so than France and Spain. As we look across the Mediterranean from the North African coast. But when you made the remarks in reference to migrants, where are you suggesting these immigrants are leaving, are deporting from? What country are you suggesting that they're leaving from to be captured or to make the insinuations that the Libyan government is so inhumane that if migrants are brought to Libya, they're beat up, they're detained, they're treated in an inhumane manner, and also suggesting that the Libyan government receives money from the UN in an effort to maintain its military, or I should say its naval fleet, that is some coastal deterrent. Libya is probably one of the only countries on the North African coast that does not seek or need monetary assistance from anybody. Libya is a country that is completely independent to all foreign and outside entities because of the fact that their wealth per capita is one of the highest in the world. They don't need assistance from the UN or any of the other foreign countries, and that is one of the grounds under which Gaddafi would have established his strength against the Western Empire or the Western institution from. That's Libya's strength. The accusations you're making or applying is inaccurate. They're grossly inaccurate pertaining to what would happen to any immigrant that comes to Libya. Libya is one of the few countries in the world, and I can tell you, my friend, where the underprivileged is looked after. To make the assertion that the Libyan country that I knew for the time that I lived there would apply any type of torture or any type of inhumane conduct towards person or persons who are in need of help or assistance is inaccurate. Very much so. And I'll pause for a minute to hear your response, because I am extremely concerned with the alleging of these sorts of conduct by the Libyan government. But go ahead, I'd listen.
Mr. Flowers, I thank you so much for your call, sir, and your input. And I appreciate all of what you said. But I am virtually reading from the Maritime feed, from the Maritime Executive. I'll be more than happy to meet with you and show you all of the literature that is out there from the Maritime feeds. But I think when you lived in Libya, and I heard you on many occasions about your past as a pilot and working in that region. And when you were there, Libya was a different place. Because, you know, after the takedown of Brother Gaddafi,
yes.
Libya...
After the civil revolution.
Right. Yes. Libya after became
that, yes.
in deep turmoil.
Right.
And what I am saying to you is Libya is now being used as an access point. It's an access point for people who are trying to get into Europe from Syria, mainly Syria and Iraq. The place they go to get across is Libya because of the turmoil in Libya and the instability in Libya. So most of them are coming from Libya, and the European Union, they want these people to be able to get to Europe. But the European countries, particularly Italy and France, as we know, they don't want no more people coming in from Africa to their country. So they are taking steps and measures by way of putting pressure on these rescue boats and whatnot to not be able to fluently do their jobs. They hinder them in a lot of ways because they want the Libyan Coast Guard to come across the people and take them back to Libya.
Let me just intervene for a second, if I may.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect to yourself, sir, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because I listen to your program quite often.
Appreciate that, sir.
In terms of the maritime experience.
Right.
But here's the challenge that you have with your geography. Geographically, if I'm in Syria, all right, and
yes,
I'm trying to get to Europe, how do I get to Africa first? How do I get to Libya? I would have to pass I have to give up the Sinai, okay, which is Egypt. I have to then cross by some means to get to Libya. Okay, and if I depart from Libya, I must be in Libya by land first before I can depart from it. I have to get on land. Africa is a different continent that house Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and all of the others. If I'm an immigrant and I'm trying to get to Europe, why would I go around through Egypt, across the eastern side of Africa, to come to a place like Tripoli, which is the nearest point to Malta, and then Malta, certainly immigrants go into Europe. But your journey for these immigrants that you're speaking about is almost impossible. Now, I would agree with you that there are African, where there are civil wars going on in Chad, where there are civil wars going on in Niger, where there are civil wars going on, that is at the that is at the southern portion of Libya. Immigrants are allowed by large numbers running away, and is coming in from Algiers and the east and the western borders of Libya, which is unprotected at the time, and they may get to the Mediterranean in large numbers. And there they are finding ways and means to make makeshift vessels or boats or whatever, and they're trying their endeavor to get across the Mediterranean to get to some sort of survival that will get them into that they can have in Europe. Now that is the greatest portion of any type of immigrants, that the channel is open since Gaddafi's departure, since the revolution in Libya. The council members that controls Libya now is still in turmoil. These people are looking for leadership. They are having a major problem with leadership because Gaddafi was the only person who were able to control that amount of different tribes that consist of the Libyan population. Forgive me, I have a bad throat.
No, that's fine, Mr. Flowers. I so appreciate your input.
And certainly, sir, that is a major problem. It's similar to the one we have with immigrants leaving Haiti. But there are larger numbers. There are larger numbers of desperate people coming across. But trust me, if these people are captured and it's turned back to Libya, even with the disjointed government that exists there now, that I'm familiar with quite a few of the persons and the leaders that are there, and that is trying to put together a state of governance in order to be recognized by the international community. And they're going to have their ongoing challenges because the removal of Gaddafi was the worst possible situation that you can have in Libya. And they have to live with it. But be that as it may, that's a day for another. That's another conversation for another day.
Yes, sir.
That we may have. But in reference to maritime, right now the Mediterranean, as far as Libya is concerned, because Libya covers the largest area of the Mediterranean of any one country. When you look at the little small portion of Egypt and the massive coastline of Libya, and then the small coastline of Tunis, and then another large mass, but not the size of
Morocco,
Libya, of Algiers,
right?
And then you got to Morocco,
right,
which is right at the very tip of the other end of the Mediterranean before you go out to the Atlantic.
That is correct.
But all along the Mediterranean coast of North Africa, there is no other entry to the Mediterranean from Africa other than those 5 states.
That is correct. And I put it. I'll take it a little step further. I don't know if you know, but the very last capsize, well, not the very last, the one before the last capsize that they had of ships of migrants actually came from Turkey. So they used to use Turkey, but I think the Turkish authorities are a little more stringent than those in Libya. And now they're starting to use Tunisia next door because people are on to Libya and they're not getting too far. But
look at what the journey is. Look at geography again. Turkey is to the north of Libya.
That's
all of Lebanon and those are to the north. Syria, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. All of these countries are north, far north, closer to Europe to the north than Africa is to the south. Now, there is a trail of persons in these areas that may leave and get onto the Mediterranean from the what we call the northeastern side of the around Beirut, around Lebanon. These are places that, yes, you can get into both, but once you sail south, like you're suggesting, once you sail south and then now start heading west, because the Mediterranean runs horizontally east and west.
That's correct.
Once you start heading west, in order to get into what is referred to as Europe or Italy or those corridors to enter Europe, why go back south? I'm trying to get north. All of Europe is north of Africa.
That's absolutely correct.
I don't go back south to go to Libya.
I think, Mr. Flowers, since we're out of time, I really stop at 9, and we're 5 minutes over. And all respects to you, I think we could agree to disagree a little bit, but I'm going to find you this week. I'm going to make it a point to find you with all the details, all the feeds, so that you and I could really sit down and have a discussion on this.
I would really appreciate it because I think as long as we are all informed accurately, as to the best of our ability, because for the most part, like I said, we speak and we read quite often. I've had the opportunity to do such myself,
right.
and just listening for correction, not to speak on air or on any other way. I'm just speaking because, you know, I listen and I'm always interested in these matters. I do thank you immensely for hearing my discussion, and certainly I look forward to having this conversation or further it with you at any time. As a matter of fact, in any group or any organization that you would like to refer to at any time, it'll be a pleasure of my own, certainly, to sit in and hear your version of it, because I'm all about listening first before I do speak.
Yes, sir. And be mindful that everything I said tonight, I was basically reading from the Maritime feeds. But,
understood.
But I will certainly find you through a mutual friend. There is a mutual friend, and I will get your contact, and I will call you, and I will make arrangement on your time to come and see you with all these details.
Not a problem. But be mindful, sir. Be mindful.
Yes, sir.
There is a lot of written material from the Middle East, and that you have to. I mean. Well, anyhow, again.
Yes, but that's
another topic.
Yes, sir. And that's the reason why I really want to talk with somebody like you who was there. You know.
Yes, I lived there for 14 years.
That's right.
And I've had the opportunity of staying and living and being around leaders and other leaders of the entire Mediterranean on both sides, and that was a grand experience for me to be able to come back home to the Bahamas and listen and raise my little 2 cents or 3 cents on the matter. Thank you again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this opportunity just to have this conversation with you this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Flowers. Take care of yourself.
Have a great evening.
All right, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Mr. Craig Flowers. I'm so happy that he found time in his I know he have a busy schedule, even though it's night, to give this show a call. And with that, we fresh out of time. Oh, my good producer allowed me to go 5 minutes over. I thank him so much. Again, our sponsors, One-on-One Pharmacy and Bahamas Maritime Connection. And I didn't say hello to my good 90-year-old Annie Mae in Freeport. Annie Mae, good night to you, darling. I know you're always listening. And continue to take care of your lovely self. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I say to you, as always, Maritime Matters out.